Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's Commercial Net Center, Lagos. Happy New Year. It's a brand new year. We made it into 2025, and I hope that this year is going to be better for you than last year was. And we've seen a flurry of messages from everyone. I'm sure you got messages from your family, your husband, your wife, your spouse, your friend, your colleague, your associate. And so are the leaders as well. The leaders of thoughts, political leaders, traditional rulers, and even religious leaders have also been sending messages. But let's begin with the president's message. He said, as we usher in, Nigerians usher in the new year with prayers and thanksgiving, the president is actually looking forward to what he considers a brighter 2025 for the nation. In the New Year message, President Bola Tinubu says that as 2025 dawns, it brings many hopes, aspirations, and prospects for better days, and he says, by the grace of God, it will be a year of great promise to fulfill collective desires. Though 2024 posed numerous challenges for citizens and households, he expressed confidence that the new year will bring brighter days as economic indicators point to positive and encouraging outlook for the nation. Fuel prices have also gradually decreased, and the naira has strengthened against the US dollar, bringing greater stability. Those were some of the thoughts of the president, but we just showed you in a flash. So let's go back to it. Some of the highlights of the president's messages, if my producer can get it for me. Yes, so if we hold this, it talked about optimism for 2025 economic outlook. He referenced the performance of the stock market, if we can stay on that old slide. Of course, he also talked about boosting food production, local food production, and FDI surge. He talks about targeting inflation at 15%. And 1 trillion naira economy. But on this particular side, he talked about establishing National Credit Guarantee Company, the launch of the National Values Charter to hold National Youth Conference 6 Better Subnational Synergy, and also asking Nigerians to discard political and ethno-religious divides. So, but I want to take one of the quotes. If we can go to a particular one, he talked about the reference that has to do with the National Credit Guarantee Company. It did say that this company is to provide credit facilities for individuals and companies as well. If my producer can get me to that next slide as we get to the conversation for the day. Hey, okay, yes. So my administration will further consolidate and increase access to credit for individuals and critical sectors of the economy to boost national economic output. To achieve this, the federal government will establish the National Credit Guarantee Company to embark or expand risk-sharing instrument for financial institutions and enterprises. So he's talking about the BOIs, the Bank of Agriculture, all of this energizing to provide some of these instruments that will help businesses and individuals as we face some of the economic challenges and headwinds we're facing in the country. So I just needed to touch on a few things. We're going to delve deep dive into that, some of the things that the president said with my guests. I have two segments today. One has to do with the state of the nation. We'll piggyback on what the president says, look at the oil industry, what is going on in that sector, and the economy in general. And the part two of the conversation will have to do with Rivers State. There's a couple of developments in Rivers State, political development in December that is trailing its way into January and will form part of what will happen in Rivers State politics. But that will be second part of the program. But let's stay with Rivers State. Tell you that the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has presented staff of office and certificates to 4 newly recognized monarchs in that state. And what he did, among those honorees is Alhaji Mujahid Asai Dokubo, a former Niger Delta freedom fighter from the Kalabari extraction of the state. He was recognized as His Royal Highness the Amayanabo of Torosara-Mapiri in Degema local government area. There were other people also from Okrika local government, Ahoda East local government, as well as Ahoda East local government area of the state that were also recognized. The event held at the River State House of Assembly, River State Government House, and marking the official recognition of the monarchs as custodians of culture and leaders within their respective communities. Speaking at that ceremony, the governor had actually emphasized the importance of traditional rulers in fostering unity and peace as well as development in the state. So that's exactly how things played out in Rivers State. It's going to be part of our conversation, but not just about this, but the broader political picture in what is playing out in that state. We've seen some of the back and forth in the last year, 2024, and we're in a brand new year. But I did say that the very first part of our conversation will have to do with what the president is looking at as far as 2025 is concerned. It's quite optimistic. And one of the things he said he's working to bring inflation down to 15%. That is very, very, very a big challenge, a tall order. For some of us who understand economics, I don't know what magic the president is going to perform, but we're going to watch and see. But it's a tall order, I must tell you that. But let's get to our very first conversation for today. And we're being joined in the program as we look at the state of the nation by the president of the Trade Union Congress, Mr. Festus Osifo, joining us via Zoom. Mr. Osifo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to Nigerians. Welcome to the year 2025.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack with you, Mr. Osifo. So, but let's begin with where the president stopped. I'm sure you would have read his message. Loads of optimism. He's been consistent in his message. We must give him that credit. He's been bold. We must give him that credit. But Nigerians are not happy with the way things are playing out. So what do you make of this latest message from the president?
Yes, Jeffrey, it is the function of the president. You know, the president of a country is the chief salesman of a country. So it's his function to give us hope. Is the function, it's his own primary responsibility to lay out the message that he has laid out, to paint a very bright picture, to paint a picture of a lot of goodies that could come in 2025. So he has done what any president in the world could do. So it is normal for the president to paint such picture. But in also painting that kind of picture, we have to also be realistic. So generally, from listening to the statement and reading through it, over and over again, we could see that a lot of things were painted with optimism. That is what the president should put out there. But for us, looking at it, because when we are looking at statements like that, we look at how will these affect the plight of Nigerians. What are there in the statement, in the speech that could inspire Nigerians? What are there in the speech that could positively influence Nigerians? So looking at what is in the speech and what is on ground, we could see that there is no much correlation between both of them.
So do you think that the president, in your view, so I would like to take your mind back to the what do you call it now, the media chat he had, and then this particular statement. Those are the two most recent, besides his remarks concerning the Warri refinery that came on stream. When you look at that media chat and you look at this statement, some people are saying the president is not in touch with reality. Is that what you see? Or he just has to keep this picture going that he wants to see?
Yes. So what I think is happening, because when I listen to President of Nigeria, what I try to do is also to look at the statement that is made in similar scenarios across different governments in the world, from African government to European government to American government. You could see a lot of similarities in it. Even when the people are passing through hardship, even when things are very, very difficult, in most cases, the commander-in-chief will always come and paint a picture of things that are going really well. I could say that from the media chat that we've also played, times again, we could realize that, that yes, the president was doubling down in some of the policies that he has put out there. But looking at it deeply, we all know, Jeffrey, between you and I, the Nigerians know clearly that a lot of these policies has brought about challenges, have brought about difficulties that we are facing today. Jeffrey, you say it over and over again. Our inflation rate today, you say it over and over again in your program, and all your guests and all the economic analysis, the financial analysts, they've all come to the realization that it is the policies that have been brought about by the government that has led to the challenges we have today. That today our exchange rate is about 1,600, depending on the parallel market or the NAFEM or NAFEX. It is also these policies that has also brought about the inflation that we have today. So in reality, what the president has said is trying to inspire hope But that hope that is trying to inspire, it is not really in tandem with what we have currently in our economy. But in all reality, Jeffrey, government all over the world, that is what they always do. They come, even when things are hard, they will try to tell us that there is a better tomorrow. But what we now look at is, what are those things that have been lined up? What are those parameters, or what are the things that are being done to stimulate the economy, so that we will be as optimistic as the commander-in-chief is or was, as the case may be. So in this case, what the president has lined up, we've been told, for example, that inflation is going to come down to 15% 2025. We've been told, for example, that our crude oil production is going to rise to about 2.06 million barrels per day. We've also been told as well that the balance of payment, we've been told how much we are going to borrow to finance our budget. So all these that the president has said, we have taken the brighter ones. When you now analyze them, what are the parameters that have been put in place? What are those details that have been put in place that we can see that truly it is not just talkism, that truly what the president is saying, there are actions to match them up? Looking at the budget, for example, Jeffrey, you could see in that budget, yes, the naira value is humongous. We've all said that compared to the dollar value, that of last year is even much more better. But Jeffrey, in Nigeria as a country, we don't have a business of having a budget size of $30 billion. $30 billion budget, let's assume that you pause corruption. Let's assume that nobody steals $1 from that budget. A $30 billion budget can lead us nowhere. To fix our federal roads alone in Nigeria, Jeffrey, a study was done by architect Mike Ononomeme, who was the Minister of Works during Goodluck Jonathan's era. And in that study, they said that it's going to take us about $120 billion to fix our federal roads alone. To make our federal road work standard, $120 billion. So if our budget size is $30 billion, Jeffrey, what that means is that we're going to need 4 years without paying salary, without fixing education, without fixing health, or doing any other thing to fix only our roads alone. Jeffrey, if you go to other African countries like South Africa, their budget size is somewhere around $128 billion. And they are still struggling. So what that means is that Nigeria as a country, we must have a conversation on how to grow our revenue. With the current revenue that we have as a country, it really leads us nowhere.
Yeah, Mr. Sifa, I'm happy you mentioned a few things. So let's play with the numbers. So for instance, they've talked about using about 15 trillion to service debt. If you add a recurrent to that, that will consume almost 30 trillion of almost 50 trillion naira budget. So if our revenue is 34 trillion, our revenue is almost gone with just recurrent and debt servicing alone. Then we have a deficit of 13 trillion that will be funded by borrowing. The whole issue of trade surplus for me is money illusion. It's not necessarily growth per se. It's not like 10 more shops we're opening. It's more like there are still 5 shops, but because of the exchange rate, 5 shops is now producing what 10 shops can produce. So what we should be looking at, which is what I want to ask you and what your counsel will be to government, until production and productivity is increased significantly, there's nothing that is going on that will make any difference. Do you agree, and what do you think can be done?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Jeffrey. Your analysis is spot on. So as a country, like for example, if you look at our GDP growth, as a country, Nigeria as of today, we are celebrating 3.46% GDP growth? Not at all. If those in the Western world are celebrating such numbers, their GDP growth, we will understand that because they are almost at the peak of development. But for a developing country, that is really abysmal. So for us, a lot of things could be done to unpack and rejuvenate the economy. Jeffrey, the quick wins that we could focus on is agriculture. The way we practice our agriculture in Nigeria, it is not how it's done all over the world. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have the land. We have a fertile land. Even without fertilizer, some of these crops, they do grow. When there is synergy, we must sit down first to have agricultural development plan for the next 10 years. If we have such plan for agriculture alone, and we determine on how to go large scale production in Nigeria, I could tell you that in agriculture alone, we could generate over $100 billion per annum in the next 3, 4, 5 years. That is a quick win, Jeffrey. But Nigeria, we could feed literally the entire Africa. We have no business in importing any commodity from abroad. Jeffrey, if today, for example, if the loans that we are taking, if we channel it 100% to agricultural development, it can be done. Look at a country that is as small as Rwanda. Look at what they export. Look at a lot of African countries like Kenya. They get a lot of revenues from agriculture. Then Nigeria, with our arable land, we are net importer of food. This is a no. So one of the quick wins is the agricultural sector. We can quickly develop that so that it will start giving us maximum revenue. But there must be synergy between the 3 tiers of government: the federal, the state, and the local government. Then if you leave agriculture, Jeffrey, you come to manufacturing. As government, they must sit down and look at what are those bottlenecks that the manufacturing sector today in Nigeria is facing. What are those challenges? How can these be quickly addressed? Yes, we had PEBEC before now that have done some quick fix here and there, but it is not sufficient. Jeffrey, it is not sufficient for us to be junketing from one part of the world to another as a government. Because if you do that, those investors, they are going to ask the people that are already on ground what they are feeling. So we must make those that are already on ground in Nigeria to feel well. We must make them, create that environment for them to thrive. When we do that, investors are going to come. In agriculture, for example, yes, what the Oyedele committee is doing about taxation, removing lot of multiple taxation, is quite welcome, but we must deepen it further. Jeffrey, why is it that today some equipment that are being imported in order, some mercenaries, they are being taxed by customs at the rate that they are currently taxing them today? Such thing must be reviewed. The exchange rate policies must be reviewed for the manufacturing sector. In fact, in each state of the federation, we could do what we had before in the industrial estates that were spread across Nigeria. Jeffrey,
all right,
these are not things that are difficult. We have had countries in Africa that has actually done this within the span of 3, 4, 5, 6 years. As a country, we can do it. But the federal government cannot do it alone. It must be synergy between the 3 tiers of government. These are some of the quick wins that we must quickly harness as a country.
Yeah. I'm going to come to how labor is viewing the how government is managing this. But you spoke about agriculture. So for the purpose of our audience, agriculture grew year on year by just barely less than 1.5%. I think it's about 1.2%, though it contributed about 24% to the GDP. And if you look at export is about barely 4%. Import, on the other hand, is about 6%. If you look at the manufacturing sector, that's about 5% in terms of export. Import is over almost 50%. So when we talk about the real things that will move the needle, we're not seeing as much as we should, because government touts FX, trade surplus, which we can botch with the analysis and all of that. So labor, for instance, how is labor viewing the performance of government, and what is labor willing to do to put fire to their feet to make sure that they revamp this economy for the good of all in 2025?
Yes. If you check last year, sometime around February, March last year, Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, we sat down. We had some conversations with experts cut across different sectors and different, sectors of Nigeria economy. We came up with a 15 point that we think government will implement that will better the life of Nigerians. We actually did that. If you also recall, last year, TUC, we were the first to shout. If you look at that 15-point communique that we released, we were the first to identify that whenever FAC allocations are being released to the state governors or the state government, that the exchange rate will spike. We identified that and we documented it. And that document was submitted to the SGF. And we also did some follow-up. So on our path, we are not going to relent on that. So as we are entering the new year, so we are coming up with another set of itemization of what we think that the government must do. And beyond just submitting it, we are going to double down effort to ensure that some of all these are done. Some of all these really are not rocket science. Some of these are things that government could do as easily as possible. So from the part of labor, across the industries, like for example, some of the things we said in the manufacturing sector, TUC, for example, we have an affiliate called FOPTOP. FOPTOP is the union in the food and beverage industries. So they have told us before now what some of their constraints are, what some of their challenges are in that industry. There was even a time they have some challenges with NAFDAC. So we have to take them up. We took the bull by the horn and we tried to push. For TAMSA, for example, who is in the chemical and metal industry, similar challenges. Then I am from the oil and gas. So similarly, so what we are going to do in all these is that we are going to increase our advocacy, and we are also going to do much more further what we did last year, because last year we collected these points, we presented it to government, and chief of them last year was about the exchange rate. Because Nigerians, we were just championing that the cost of PMS is quite high. Yes, it is true. And we said in that our document that what is responsible for even the cost of PMS to be where it is today is actually the exchange rate. Jeffrey, if this government, as of last year, if they actually wanted to manage the exchange rate to sub 1,000 naira to a dollar, it could have been done. If you do a study and a comparative analysis of developing economy and how they manage their exchange rate without more challenges, Nigeria could duplicate and do even much more. So we were convinced. So we championed this last year, but because the governors, what was giving them more money, what makes the FAC allocation to increase is actually the proceeds from exchange rate, not majorly from the proceeds of a subsidy removal. Because you have a lot of companies operating in Nigeria, mostly in the oil and gas sector. The tax that they pay to government is paid in USD. So now those taxes and royalties that are paid in USD, when they are not to convert them to naira, if for example you are paying $1 million and that $1 million was at 400 naira, you are going to get 400,000 naira. But as at that last year, they started enjoying exchange rate at about 1,002, 1,003, 1,004. So instead of you having 400,000 naira, $1 million will not give you 1.4 billion naira. And because this was coming in, and the chunk of what they do with their revenue is payment of salaries. So they saw this as a windfall, and that was why they also put pressure in the system for the exchange rate not to go down compared to where it was as of December 2023. So for us, we will continuously expose this, we'll continue to discuss about all this, and we'll continuously hold government accountable by doing much more advocacy to ensure that the needful is done.
It's interesting that the people that should work for the interests of the people, from your submission, looks like they're the ones working against the interests. It looks like they are gaining, so they just want to continue gaining. But is Labour ready to push for more in terms of minimum wage? Because I remember the words of Joe Ajero when he was interviewed after the agreement was made of 70,000 naira. He said, we accepted this with mixed feeling. And one of the things he revealed, I don't know whether you were in the room, so you let us know, he said, the president has presented a two-case scenario for him. I will pay you 70,000. and then PMS and all of that will stay where they are. Or I will increase fuel price and give you 250,000. So is Labour feeling like the president deceived them? And now because 70,000 cannot even buy a bag of rice, is Labour going to push for extra in terms of minimum wage?
Yeah, Jeffrey, that account, as you laid it, I was in all the conversations, I was in all the meetings. So that account, as was pushed, was not exactly the way it was said. But again, not exactly the way you have stated it now. But overall, in all this, Jeffrey, what we are pushing for from Labour is that instead of you to wait for 5 years to increase minimum wage, you will now look at the inflation of the last 5 years and try to do some adjustment. Why can't we be reflecting the inflation on an annual basis, for example? So we have entered January 2025. So by 15th of January 2025, the National Bureau of Statistics is going to release the inflation figure for December. So what we are pushing for as Labour is that if, for example, the inflation figure is 35%, apply that 35% on the 70,000 naira minimum wage, so that it will become reflective of what the true value is. Then when we get to 2026, you will also do similar application. So that is actually where we are what we are pushing. We shouldn't be waiting for 5 years, but in the new act now, 3 years for us to do those adjustments. We could be doing them systemically by applying the inflation as at December the preceding year to what the minimum wage is. So this is part of the position that we are also going to canvass this year that we have entered now. We started the conversation last year, but we will continue it, in 2025.
All right, so we're going to wind down. A few more questions, Mr. Sifo, and thank you for coming through. Can Nigerians trust Labour again? I use those words deliberately because it looks like a lot of our institutions are suffering from crisis of confidence. I can go from police to INEC to the judiciary to NNPCL. I'm going to come to that as well. But let me start with, because you are in the oil and gas sector, my last set of questions has to do with the oil and gas sector. Can Nigerians trust the organized labor again? But I can tell you for free, Nigerians don't seem to trust you guys anymore, with the greatest sense of respect.
Jeffrey, you don't blame Nigerians. Don't blame Nigerians because first, Nigerians, how many Nigerians truly understand the process of collective bargaining agreement? Jeffrey, collective bargaining agreement is actually subjected to some science, right? Or in some cases, some art. Let me give you an instance. If you check the minimum wage as at 30,000 naira in 2019 April, if you adjust for inflation in 2020, 2021 April, 2022 April, 2023 April, till 2024, when the new minimum wage was signed, Jeffrey, go and take what the inflation was within this period I have just enumerated. When you adjust it to 30,000 naira, you are going to come to somewhere around 74,500 naira. So now, when you now go into negotiations, you are going into negotiations based on the statistics that government institution has provided. So when you do those analyses, so if we had gotten 74,500 naira, we would have achieved 100%. We would have achieved 100% adjustment for inflation within the 5 years. I have the document. I can forward it to you after this program. But when you compare that inflation figure as released by MBS in the last 5 years, when you compare that with what is happening in the market, it is a bit different. So as Labour, we will be coming with the argument of what is happening in the market. But government will tell you that that there's an institution that releases inflation, that we need to work with that. So because the people, the populists, they are feeling the pinches. The populists, they are feeling the difficulty. So they could react in any way that they deem fit. So we don't blame Nigerians in any way. But overall, there are some of all these passes through a lot of conversations that ended us, for example, in where we dropped the minimum wage. So I know you are very good with data. You could go back before, after now, and do the analysis, and I could forward you the document. So, but this is where the catch is. This is where the catch is. Let me end here, Jeffrey. You know, if we are going to such conversations, you always up your game. We were talking about living wage, not even minimum wage. We submitted 615,000 naira, for example. As we submitted 615, and we were wanting government, because we know the argument government will come from. So when we submitted that, we needed to defend it. So the expectation of the public was actually heightened, which is expected. So now looking at the scientific way of negotiating, the government now said no, they are not ready for living wage. All they are ready for is the minimum wage as prescribed by law. So when we now came down to where we ended, which is about 90%, 70,000 naira is about 90% of 74,000 naira. So when we now ended there, the people will feel, oh, we could have done more, which is normal. Which when we started the conversation, we thought we'll be able to push government to that of a living wage. But Jeffrey, beyond all these that I have talked about, I will tell you that a lot of affiliates of TUC, for example, let me use Pengassan for example. If you see the amount of work that has been done in the respective companies, if you hear the increases that we've been able to do across the oil and gas industry today, you will be marveled. But you will not hear that because we discussed that with respective management. We signed CBA behind the scene. It is when we say we want to go on strike that labor, that press are usually interested. But for every strike that we go for, we have signed series of collective bargaining agreements. When you come to Pengassan, for example, we tell you the lot of work. When you go to FOPTOB, when you go to CAMSA, you will see those enormous work that are going on behind the scene. So really, it is expected that because there is a markup that you provide when you go into negotiations. So the public expects you to even give them the charter of demand and not to drop 1 naira from it. So it's unexpected.
Mr. Osifo, I cannot have you and not talk about NNPCL and the issue of the refineries that are coming on stream. And I'll give you the posture of Nigerians so that you can tell Nigerians the truth as a player in that space. And the reason why, even if NNPC comes here and says this is water, Nigerians will say it's a lie, this is not water. It's simple. When NNPCL, it took Dangote Refinery, Dangote himself to tell us what was our stake. Initially, NNPCL had said 20%, because that was actually what was supposed to be proposed. But we ended up being, I think, 7.2%. So on that part, they dropped the ball. The issue of them being indebted to $6.8 billion. Initially, there was an argument where they owing, they were not coming clean until they said, yeah, but you know, this payment, there's a way it is done. Are you owing or you're not owing? We later found out what it was. And then we now had the issue of the deadlines of the refinery coming upstream until we got tired of counting deadlines. That dropped the confidence. And then we had the Port Harcourt refinery coming on stream. And then the average public person thinks, the average Nigerian would think that it's crude straight to PMS. But now realize that, you know, you have to blend naphtha with C5 to get PMS. And now I think they have started correcting themselves with being clear that the Warri refinery is not producing PMS yet, but produces naphtha. So what is really the state of, can the refineries in Nigeria take crude into the distillating column and get us PMS directly? And what is the state of those refineries?
No, Jeffrey, first, I must state this. Because Nigerians are not giving labor as much credit that they deserve in this refinery that is coming upstream now. This is the very first time, Jeffrey, that labor was present in the steering committee of the refinery rehab. I represented Pengassan in the steering committee. My counterpart in Nupeng represented Pengassan, by extension TUC. Then my counterpart in Nupeng, he represented Nupeng and NLC in the steering committee. Jeffrey, I could tell you the amount of value that we brought into it. And chief among the value was when they were about to borrow money from Afri-Ezin to maintain these refineries. We insisted that that money should not go to CBN, that money should not go to Federation account, but the money must be kept in escrow account, where they will be drawing the money according to the work done so far. So it was because of that. Just imagine if the money was in CBN. You've heard all the shenanigans that took place in the CBN under Emefiele. So imagine if that money was in the CBN, this rehab today would not have been where it is currently. So I feel that we don't get as much credit for that, but that's fine. But coming to the distillation, Jeffrey, I'm a mechanical engineer. By God's grace, I'm a petroleum engineer as well. And I have a very deep knowledge of some of how these operate. Jeffrey, PMS production does not come directly from the crude distillating column. The reason is this, or what you call the fractional distillation process. At best, you are going to get naphtha, or you get something that is very, very close to that. You now need series of other processes that could give you the PMS that our car today could use. Before now, in the 60s, in the 70s, when you have naphtha, you just need a little more additives to be able to give the PMS that the old internal combustion engines could use. But currently, with the sophistication of our vehicles today, if you put naphtha into those vehicles, your engine is going to knock because of what we call octane number. So to be able to have that premium octane number could be premium, it could be regular, it could be moderate. Okay. That is why when you go abroad and you go to fuel stations, you are going to see 3 pumps. One will tell you is regular, one will tell you premium, and the other one will be in between. And you can call it moderate. Because that naphtha is taken into further processes in order for you to obtain PMS. And chief among them, like in the Port Harcourt refinery, there is a unit there that unit is to produce reformate. And that unit is not currently up to date. That is why they have to bring crack C5 from Indorama to mix with the naphtha in order to now produce. Okay. So it is not a single process. It is not a single process. But you could obtain AGO, kerosene, and ATK from a single process. But you need further processes before you could produce PMS.
Mr. Osifo, I wish there was more time, because on this NNPCL and this refinery issue, there's a lot to talk about because of the reputation, in terms of reputation of the NNPCL. And I'm telling them directly now on camera, NNPCL, you guys need to work on your reputation, because the public does not really believe much of what you say, whether you're saying the truth or you're not saying the truth. Mr. Osifo, we'll count on people like you to tell us the truth, and we believe you will not disappoint us. Festus Osifo is the president of the Trade Union Congress. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you. A happy New Year once again.
Same to you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch to Rivers State within the time we have. The politics is building up, given what happened last year. We'll talk about it in just a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's get straight to the conversation of Rivers State. Because the luxury of time we don't have. Terminal Sisigogo Jaja is a former majority leader and former commissioner in Rivers State, as well as Emmanuel Deya, former reps and former commissioner as well in Rivers State. Gentlemen, my apologies. Thank you for staying with us. Let me start with you, Mr. Deya, on this particular one. The latest thing that has happened in Rivers State that we are looking at closely is the issue of the presentation of the budget to the Okojombo-led House of Assembly. We remember when the president intervened in the last time, that was part of the clause that caused the controversy, and it went all the way to the courts. Without speaking to the substance of the case, because it's the subject of adjudication, what do you make of this presentation of the budget to the Okojombo House of Assembly, dear?
I am not in the mind of the governor, so I cannot understand why there is a subsisting judgment of the Court of Appeal, where even the court went to say that this is a joke taken too far. The Court of Appeal said it should represent the budget. So the Martins annually led assembly, and I can't say I don't know. And it's also very shocking and surprising that government is based on laws, precedents. If the law says do this, the court, which is in a position to interpret the law, has also said do this. What then would be the basis for the governor to do otherwise? Maybe he's in the right position to say, because I can't understand where we are headed.
All right, Mr. Agogo Jaja, My apologies, Mr. Adi. I've got time. I just want to take as many reactions as possible. Mr. Agogo Jaja, he said he doesn't understand, in his words, in his views, that there's a subsisting court order or court judgment. Why would the governor still present this budget to Okojumbo-led House of Assembly? What do you make of it?
Mr. Jeffrey, thank you for having me once more. But let me clearly state that the Okojumbo-led State Assembly is the only legally recognized state assembly in Rivers State as we speak. What any person may not tell you is the Court of Appeal judgment they are banding everywhere to say Court of Appeal has said this. Nobody has been able to tell you that this is a matter that came before the defection of the 27 to the APC. They filed that matter before Justice Omotosho about the 29th of November, and they defected on 11th of December. So the issue of defection was not before Omotosho. Two of us are dragging a piece of land over, or dragging over a building, and all of a sudden you abandon the land and left. But the land automatically becomes mine. The issue was, who was the Speaker of the House before their defection? Well, are we supposed? Are we the ones who are supposed to receive the budget before our defection? That case was filed before Omotosho, and on the 11th of December, the 27 members of the House of Assembly defected to the APC, and they have automatically lost that seat, their seat. So they are no longer members of the State Assembly. And I wonder what is holding INEC from conducting election. They haven't been able to tell you that that was a matter that was filed in November 2023, and they defected in December 2023. And I want to state clearly that the issue of defection was not before Omotosho. So they are not members of the State Assembly.
All right, Mr. Agogo Jaja, we'll leave the substance of the matter to the court. But let's go to Mr. D on this one. Are we, and this question is to both of you gentlemen, if you can do it in one minute, because I want to take as many questions as possible within the time. Are we experiencing a political logjam in Rivers State? Mr. D.
Now, let's face the issues here. My friend, Honorable Tamnosisi Gogojaja just said that automatically, are we in the forest, are we in the animal kingdom where the rule of might is in place? We are run as a society on laws. Okay, the members are supposed to have defected. Let's assume, not consider. Where is the judgment? Because they are contesting it. Where is the judgment of a competent court of law saying these people are no longer members? None. Now, when you're talking about these members, remember that the House, properly constituted, suspended some of these people. How then did they come back to become members that are sitting over the affairs of the state? Let's even look at it logically. There are how many members in the House? How many are you presenting? Look, my brother, before this time, we used to have the military. And under the military, you have the legislature completely absent. You have the executive arm and the judiciary. Democracy is hinged on people's representation and participation. And the people of Rivers State are represented in the House of Assembly by those elected there. Why will you sit and say automatically? Even in Parliament, if somebody defects, it's either the Speaker that will declare their seat vacant or the Court of Law. And in this case, can he tell me logically, legitimately, where an election was held and the President Chief of Staff was made Speaker, and when he resigned, how or where this other person that...
Mr. Agogo Jaja, let me take it to Mr. Agogo Jaja. Mr. Dia, my apologies. Mr. Agogo Jaja, my question is logjam. I don't know whether he responded to that, but he tries to paint a picture.
Sure. I'll answer you straight. And there is no political logjam in Rivers State. But having said that, let me establish a fact. And that fact is that as at the time the seats of these 27 were declared vacant, we had a court judgment, a court order from Justice Dana Gogo's court that recognized Edison as the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly. My blame will go to INEC. Why they are denying Rivers people representation in the State Assembly? Because if they have gone ahead to conduct these elections, by now most of these constituencies would have been represented. My friend and brother, Honorable Dia, was a member of the Rivers State House of Assembly. He also knows he played a role in the writing of the present standing order of the River State House of Assembly, because two of us slept in the same hotel drafting the River State House of Assembly's standing order in 1999 when I came into the assembly. He also knows that there is no logic in politics and there is no logic in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Speaker has declared their seats vacant. It is left for them anytime they get a judgment to challenge the court order from the Justice Dana Gogo's court declaring that action illegal. That's when we shall be considering logic. And in this case, they are no longer members of the State Assembly.
All right, Mr. Dia, 30 seconds I'll give you. I understand I have barely less than a minute. What can bring peace? We keep repeating this question and we're not going to get tired of it. What can bring peace in your view? 30 seconds.
Okay. Let me say, to my knowledge and understanding, the meeting we held with the president in December last year was at the instance of the governor. In that meeting, I'd like to say that the president, the vice president, the chief of staff, the secretary to government were all former parliamentarians. The only other two persons, the Attorney General and the National Security Advisor, were part of that meeting that drafted the proclamation that the president named it. And at that meeting, somebody was asked to read the resolution. And at every point when one is read, the president will say, hold it. Any comment, any dissension,
Okay.
And when they are done, he says, carry it. We did that for all the 8 of them.
Okay.
Now, when we left that meeting, if the governor or his team felt that any of those items did not favor them, why didn't you go back there? The first thing you now did was, it was only advice.
Okay.
It is not binding and all of that.
All
now,
right.
at this point,
Mr. Dia,
my brother will say,
just land on your top, 10 seconds.
Yeah, the point is that if you want peace, you will not make these pronouncements. You will not do the way you're doing now.
My sincere apology, gentlemen. My sincere apology. This is what we will do. Definitely, this is an ongoing conversation, Mr. Tamina Sisigogo Jaja and Mr. Emmanuel Dia. We have to bring you guys back. Let's talk about this at a.
I thought you wanted to ask me the way forward. You gave him the opportunity to say something.
Yes, I've been told by my producer I don't have any more. That's why I'm saying this is open for more conversation. My apologies, Mr. Tamina Sisigogo Jaja, former majority leader and former commissioner, Mr. Emmanuel Dia, former reps member and former commissioner. Gentlemen, we will talk again. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. The year started is January 1st, 2025. Happy New Year. God bless you. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. Bye-bye.